Hey guys, Andy Yen, Spoken Label, back in the house on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, it's bloody freezing up here. Now, obviously, people can see the backdrop of my short story book here, Fred's, and I've just been bumped into one of my friends from Ashton this morning, and they told me where they live was like that, like overnight. It's freezing, absolute cold day. I've got several layers on to keep me warm, so. But it's always good to do a podcast. It gets me it's my exercise for the day. So, so I've got a friend with me today, and she's been out for her first run of the year already. And we're up in part of the world I grew up in, actually, or just up the road from that, so top end of Urmston, with the wonderful Annie Acre. And Annie, you've been telling me before you've been out for your first run today, haven't you, as well today?
Yeah, so I'm feeling very virtuous and slightly tired.
Blimey, I wouldn't want to do it this morning. Not the coldness, that's for sure of it. So, but yeah, we're not here to talk about a running podcast with Annie. I could ask, could probably do it, but we'll do that another day. Now we're here to talk about Annie's creativity because she's a multidisciplined lady. And when we met about 18 months ago, didn't we, through Speakeasy, I seem to recall.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, no, as well. You got in touch with me. And you've read for us a good number of occasions since. And I really like your work, so hence why we've got Annie here today. Now, Annie, you've told me obviously off mic a little bit about your creativity. So tell us about where this came from originally.
Um, I wanted to be a writer for as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, I was always writing stories, absolutely loved reading and writing. I think I was going to say it was a bit of a safe space for me, but I think it was more of a free space.
Hmm.
Um, and I was very, very shy and introverted growing up, and I wasn't very articulate to speak. So I think I became very articulate with the written word instead. And it was just always a place where I could sort of escape to. Um, so yeah, I always wanted to write. And then I started to take it a bit more seriously when I was a teenager and thought I can't just write little bits of things and fantasize about being a writer. I'm going to have to start to actually sort of put together a portfolio. And then I ended up studying it at university. And then had some time off, I guess. And then I've managed to return to it in recent years, and yeah, absolutely loving it.
Brilliant. Now, my fault here. There is a trigger warning on this podcast today because the topics we're going to be touching on shortly are definitely not suitable for everybody. So please be warned of that because we're going to enter some probably quite dark topics here. So, but before we get on to that, now, Annie, obviously, your day job it's a fascinating job, this as well, urban regeneration. And you're linking it into your more recent work, apart from your pamphlet, which we'll come into shortly. So I want to learn about when did you first go into urban regeneration?
So it's a bit of a story. I'll try and tell it briefly. When I left university, I intended to become a novelist, which I wish I could go back and just slap myself and say, Annie, why don't you just try and write some poems or a short story or something a bit more manageable? But yeah, I thought I was going to become a novelist, and I knew when I left uni that I didn't think I'd be able to cope with a graduate job because I think I was starting to struggle with my mental health already. So I thought I'll get a job as a postwoman, which I always wanted to do since being a kid, and I'll write on the side.
Oh, brilliant,
And
brilliant.
then, yeah, I think I was going to become like Bukowski or somebody like that. I don't know what I was thinking, but I ended up getting really interested in housing at the time. Homelessness was a massive visible issue in Manchester city centre. And I had a lot of housing issues myself, probably things that everybody's experienced. And yeah, sort of growing up, I sort of reflected on what a massive impact housing and the property market had had on my family. So everything was sort of pointed in that direction. So I ended up doing some housing campaigning on affordable housing. I did some volunteering with homeless people. And then I decided to retrain. So I ended up doing a master's conversion course to real estate at Salford University. And I ended up getting a job at a housing association. And then I ended up getting a job at a council. And they asked me if I wanted to train to be a chartered surveyor. And I said, no, not really. Again, I wish I could go back and slap myself and say that's a wonderful opportunity. You should take that. But eventually, I did do it, and I wound up working on a property management team managing like industrial estates. And I thought, what's happened here? Because this isn't the reason that I went into this. But luckily, I ended up working in the regeneration team and work on regeneration projects and delivery affordable housing as well, which is important to me, which I'm quite proud of. So yeah, it's been a bit of a circuitous route, but I've wound up in a job I really like. So
I think you do sometimes, right? I took me long later in life to find the direction I wanted to go in. And well, my writing stumbled. I've been writing all my life, like one way or another. And I took it seriously when I got to about 40. So you
um,
do. Sometimes it goes in a very roundabout way. So I can understand you with that. Now, obviously, the first thing I want to talk to you about today, which is directly linked into your urban regeneration, is one of the most fascinating magazines I've come across online, this Urban Scrawl, which I think is linked in well to your work, isn't it? So what made you want to do this quite fascinating magazine?
yeah, so I think I didn't set off to become a chartered surveyor, and I didn't really set off to become a poet. But I thought now I'm here, it's kind of building on that idea of sort of do what you can with what you have where you are, and also maybe write what only you can write. So, yeah, increasingly, I think, I've got some technical skills on the sort of regeneration side. And I've got some technical skills on the writing side. And I thought it'd be great to try and bring those together and try and do something. Basically, I want to make a useful, interesting, and meaningful contribution in this space that I found myself in. And I thought it can't only be me. There must be other people out there that are also interested in these really important issues around towns, cities, regeneration, gentrification. And I think culture and art is really important in good regeneration, and I wanted to explore artist perspectives on some of these issues. And I just wanted to spark a conversation around it, really. And I had no idea if anyone was going to send me any work to publish. And yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest. So I'm quite happy with how it's working out.
Yeah,
Um,
he's doing really well, definitely with that. You've done two magazines to date, haven't you? And the third one's due April, I believe.
That's it, yeah. So I'm going to do it quarterly. So yeah, January, April, July, and October. So yeah, if anyone has poetry, stories, essays, non-fiction, photography, visual art on anything to do with urban issues, town, cities, buildings, etc., you can send it to me at any time. If you just Google Urban Scroll, you should find it. But yeah, I'm thinking later in the year of maybe expanding it slightly
Hmm,
and maybe doing some workshops around Manchester.
that's
I like the
interesting.
idea of maybe like writing a poem under a bridge or like in
Oh
a
yeah,
lobby or something.
yeah, it's really clever. That yeah, it's a good idea. Definitely good luck with that. Keep me informed to nothing free. I'll be down for that straight away. So always a
Yeah, and I
believer in
might,
writing in weird places.
yeah, and I might pick your brains as well because I was thinking potentially of maybe trying a podcast as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, chat about that off mic later, definitely with that. So, yeah, there's a good idea. So I could give you recommendations to that straight away. No, good
Okay.
stuff. Yeah, people know obviously I've been featured in issue one. You got me writing about where I live on basically what the regeneration kicking in Stretford, and I've got some pieces pending me, possibly for issue three, but I'm not going to push you for that. So you'll tell me about that in due course. So brilliant. Now you've had a couple of good publications come through as well, so I want to make people aware of these as well. Obviously, the first one is live at Worktown, that's Dave Morgan's project over at Bolton, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, that's the first poem I read published, and a later version of it is actually in my pamphlet. But yeah, I've got to give a shout out to Lisa or her, who I knew of through hosting Verbose.
Hi,
And I
Lisa.
saw,
Yeah, I know Lisa. Yeah, she's great.
yeah, and I saw she was guest editing Worktown Words, so I sent a poem in. And yeah, it's just the first time you see you working for it, and it's very special, isn't it? So
Yeah, it's
it
brilliant.
was.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, agreed. Now you've also then been featured on Ink, Sweat and Tears, and they're quite a big magazine. They are. I've been on them at least once myself. So tell us about that as well then.
Yeah, that was a nice surprise. That's the second time I've been published, and that was a poem. Um, so I've got to give another shout out to a host of Ribos, which is Becky May, because I wrote this poem in one
Becky
of
as
her
well.
workshops. And yeah, the prompt was write about two sides of something. So I wrote a poem about a flower because I was just starting to
Mm.
garden at the time, and it was kind of a metaphor for bipolar disorder. And yeah, I got an email one morning saying you're going to be published today, and that was lovely. So.
Oh, great, Magdalena. Well done for that. Now, you've also, it shows you actually this, and I'm annoyed myself I missed this, but it's a bit of a trouble for me to get it. You headlined at Rhyme Time, didn't you, relatively recently as well? Tony Curry's night as well. And that was your first headline spot, wasn't it, as well, I believe?
Yeah, I don't know whether that counts as a headline spot. I'm not sure, but I'll take it.
I count it as, yeah, there was only two spoken word artists on and two musicians, so I counted it headline spot.
Yeah, no, I'll take that definitely. Yeah, I met Tony because I did an open mic at Word
Mm.
Central, and then he asked me to do that, which was a really good opportunity. I'm starting to get slightly longer slots at places, and it's nice because you can kind of build a set, and it does your confidence well. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that, and yeah, it was a good opportunity. I think I might be performing at the Colton Club again
Oh, yeah.
in May. But yeah, I best not say anything about that in case it's not confirmed yet.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Fingers crossed here, definitely with that. Now, I said 40, obviously. People know, obviously, I did put a trigger warning up at the beginning of the podcast. And this is over your debut pamphlet that's just come out. It's self-published for yourself, and it's After You Raped Me, Everything Rhymed. Now, I've got to be careful to be sensitive here, for obviously for various
Yeah.
reasons with this. But what's made you want to do this pamphlet, first of all?
So I didn't set out to write a pamphlet and I didn't set out to write any poetry. But yeah, the inciting incident referred to in the title happened. And as I alluded to earlier, in my 20s, I really struggled with mental health and lots of different issues. And it was when sort of things got really bad that I ended up in therapy.
Mm,
And all of this poetry just poured out of me. I'd never really written poetry before, I'd always written prose. But suddenly I was writing all these poems. And what I find fascinating is that it was as I was learning to tell my own
mm,
biography, my own story, um, because suddenly I could kind of see, call them almost like dominoes of trauma sort of going
yeah.
back. And when I sort of got my head around that, I could suddenly start telling stories in general because even though I'd always been writing, I tended to write bits and pieces of things. I was quite good with ideas, description, characters, but I was useless at plot. Nothing ever happened. I just couldn't tell a story. But yeah, as I was in therapy and I was sort of learning my own story, I could suddenly write and I could suddenly finish pieces and I was suddenly writing poems. And it was only looking back after I'd written a bunch of them that I realized that they were all quite tightly structured. I was writing in forms, I was making up my own forms, and rhyme was a massive feature. And I think part of that was probably because they were my first poems, and I think probably when people start to write poems, they tend to rhyme. But also, I think it was my way of sort of regaining control over my own sort of story. And then I started to write pieces that were more loose and free verse, which was nice. But so yeah, I didn't really intend to do it at all, and it just kind of happened. And I, I sort of kept adding to it over the years. I'd write different things as well, but I kept coming back to it, and I kept adding to it. And I finally got it into a shape I was happy with, and couldn't get it published through submissions or competitions. So I thought I am ready to move on to it and sort of do more urban scroll type writing. But I thought it'd be such a shame if I just put it in a drawer and didn't share it. So yeah, I've decided to share it.
No, it's excellent. It's a really, really powerful, powerful short collection. So that's why. So now, obviously, what you've done here, I have to ask you this question on this because I don't want to go into too much, obviously, because some of the content's more graphic than others, obviously. But what I
Sure.
found interesting was that you did it in two parts inside the little collection of main body and then afterward. I said afterward, then afterward. So, what made you split it into two parts?
Um, I think the poems that are in the main body, they're all heavily rhyming, sort of quite formal. I do want to say that the poems they're very playful and they're very hopeful, I think. So they're not it's not sort of all doom and gloom or dark. They are all like that, even the early ones. But um, they're all sort of like in the experience, if you know what I mean. And then the ones that I wrote that I've put in the afterward is they're, I think, more reflective, sort of looking back on the experience, and then also forward looking as to sort of like writing the next chapter, I guess. So I just thought it was a nice split, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good contrast, obviously, straight away with it. So, and that's why I thought it's always worth mentioning two people. Now, obviously, when I'm reviewing the good collections, people know I just pick out a few pieces I thought were reflected of the collection. So I'll tell you this in advance because I'm kind. But I know, obviously, I want to talk about the first poem, obviously, social media. Now, if anyone's got this wonderful collection, it is on page 7. Now, I thought with this alone, it's just a couple of quick notes for myself on this. I'd liked the use of the he starting off each stanza in this piece. With the piece itself, was it always going to be structured this way, or did it just come naturally?
I'm really glad you've asked me about this one. This was also I wrote in Becky Mahir's workshop.
Oh, was it? Oh, well, hi, Becky.
Incredible workshop. Um, I can't quite remember what the prompt was, but it was something to do with either different perspectives or from an inanimate object's perspective. It was something to do with that. So yeah, it came to me straight away of the sort of I wanted to have these sort of three actions going on. So each stanza's got three lines, and the first line starts with he, the second one she, and the last one I. And it is quite dark. It is depicting sort of online sexual abuse, but with the I, it's from the perspective of like a webcam or a social media platform, because I wanted to make the point that these platforms are active participants in this. Like I find it baffling. I feel like we've had generations of girls now where there's been like sexual abuse on an industrial scale. So yeah, that was my sort of way of exploring that really, which is quite dark, but there
I
you
think
go.
it's very effective the way you've done it. I think giving it the he, it breaks the pace of the piece up. 'Cause I don't think I've seen you read this one, but I can imagine it being quite a slow piece to read because of the rhythm on it. But yeah, no, great. When you write your poetry, generally, are you one of these sort of writers that writes them quite quickly in bursts, or do you sometimes let them stew over in your head for a while?
Both. I found workshops very useful. I used to hate the idea of prompts. I think I thought, don't tell me what to write. But actually,
Yeah.
when you do just write something with that sort of immediacy from start to finish in a couple of minutes, they can be the best poems. So I've started to do that. I do have sort of longer ones, which are probably too long, that I work on for a while. So yeah, both these things.
Yeah, similar with the next one here, because obviously people see the pamphlet. There is some, it's quite interesting. I'll ask you about it separately, isn't it? Because the further we go into the pamphlet, the longer the poems seem to get, which I think is a very clever way, actually. And I bet it wasn't planned either, that. But I didn't think it was. But shame in the box. Now, there's a couple of points to this one, and I've not said everything here on this, on the notes I sent to you, because the piece itself is all told in one like block. Then there's bits of repetition in all of it and in the rhythm all the time. But before we talk about that, I'm interested in learning what made you do it as Shame in the Box, as Shame dash in dash the box as the title.
Um, I mean, something that just comes out of me, I can't help it. Even when I should probably tone it down, I can't help it. But I just love wordplay. And even in my
Mm.
darkest sort of poems that are about, really traumatic things, I can't help but wordplay. So there's an element of that in it. And then yeah, I guess the poems, yeah, exploring that idea of being in a box, and partly that's like a screen as a box, but obviously it's sort of, yeah, other forms of boxes, I suppose.
Yeah. Now, what's this? Because people look at it, do you mind if I quote a little bit on this poem? Because I'm
Not
going
at
to
all.
show people what I mean here. Because you've got like little bits in the piece where the tempo seems to pick up as the poem goes along. And you've got like the last couple of lines of fat hands groping 12, ticks molesting tocks, black ribbon like belt, black ribbon white welt, black ribbon night melt, and then I came in a box. The rhythm on that is absolutely brilliant. But was it, have you done the rhythm on it? Because it's like a little belt, the piece. But was it quite a difficult piece to write that, or did it just come bang, bang, bang?
That's the first proper poem I ever
Oh,
wrote,
was it? Oh, wow.
and it just fell out of me. I had no idea where it came from. I had no idea how I wrote it. It just came out.
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you. Like I think sometimes pieces do that, don't they? When it's the first, you look at the first adult piece you wrote, it does, things fly out and you're trying to work it out what direction it went. And I remember my first piece, proper piece a few years ago, and I just sat there now, 20 years later, looking at it thinking, what the hell did I do there?
Yeah. It's a nice feeling when that happens. It doesn't often happen, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you with it. Now, obviously, later into part two in the collection, people are going to be rustling today. Yeah, so I'm trying to move the page along. And this is where some of your later pieces, it's certainly in part two, you can really see your playfulness on it, and it's confessional poet, and I think this is fantastic. I can imagine you struggling a bit to perform this. 'Cause I think it's a difficult piece actually, but you're heading almost like into theatrical drama with this piece in a poem form. Was that the
Yeah.
plan?
No, originally I wrote it as a poem and it was really long.
Hmm.
Um, and then somebody, which was really good advice, said, why don't you could almost set it out like a prose poem, to sort of get it on one sheet, I suppose. And then I thought of the idea of, yeah, I suppose turning it into a monologue. So yeah, I think I performed it once, and I had to read it because I couldn't remember it. And I just pretended that I was on my sofa at home with a glass of wine, having like a bit of a rant. So
Yeah, it's a genius piece. It really, really is, and it's had like it's. Did you find then, obviously, when you transferred it from a poem into a prose poem, because they are very quite different mediums. Did it prove to you, like you looked at it after, and you're thinking, good grief, this really works? Did it, or did it one of the ones you had to tease out a bit more for yourself?
I tried to write it in one go because I wanted to have that um, ranty feel. So yeah, it was relatively straightforward. Really, I wanted to address the idea of writing confessional poetry because it's even today it can be dismissed, and particularly I think if you're a woman writing it, and it's all real stereotypical. But like my hero growing up with Sylvia Plath and all the rest of it, and you're thinking, how do you even do this? And also, I feel like it's more acceptable to write about some traumas than others. So I sort of just wanted to address that head on and be like, look, I know it's how do you do it? I don't know.
Yeah, and they've done a fantastic job of it. And it's because it's interesting. 'Cause like I said, some of the other pieces are very. It's not as direct a poem as some of the other ones are in the collection. And I think it stands out really well because you've shown a variation in form on it. And any collection anybody does it, it's a really clever trick to do that indeed. Now,
Okay.
the last piece I want to talk about was another one. I think it came just after, yeah, the page after actually, or two pages after, was trauma industrial complex. Now, there's a few questions I want to ask in this one, but obviously, McGarvey, what's the significance of Darren McGarvey on this piece, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I wrote this piece after I'd read his book, which is called Trauma Industrial Complex.
Ah, right.
And I'd never before, I obviously knew lots of people have trauma and pretty much everybody has trauma. I knew that. But I'd never really thought of it as being this sort of system, or like this industrial complex that we're all in. and I wanted to write something to sort of try and portray that in a poem, and how all of these were sort of all interconnected in this system of trauma, I guess. Um, and it's a fascinating book. He really makes some good points about oversharing, and especially oversharing online, which I was very mindful of because obviously I've written a very personal um, collection. But yeah, all the pieces, because the collection changed over time, and I pulled pieces in and out, but all the ones I left in, I do think they stand as pieces of art. They're not just sort of oversharing details for the sake of it, but it's a fascinating book. I would recommend it. Yeah.
No, I can't blame you that it does it. So I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna look into this book because I knew the name, but obviously I didn't know the books. That's why. So because if people look at the poem itself, what you've done is you've done it as two narratives. Obviously, a left-hand side and a right-hand side. At the bottom, it brings it all together. These are there's a name for this sort of poem, and I forgot the name of it off the top of my head. But this looks like it took you a lot of work to get together this as well. Was this a really tricky piece to write?
Yeah, it was. Someone told me the other day, actually, apparently it's called a twin cinema poem, which
That's it. I knew it was twin something, but that's just me
Mhm.
being old and forgetful.
which I'd never heard of, to be honest. So yeah, I created a really tight structure for myself, and probably I'm the only one that even knows it. But yeah, each there's five stanzas each, and um, going down each side of the page, and then there's a last stanza in the middle of the page, and each opposite stanza, I include a reference to the same finger of a hand. And in each stanza, I referred to a form of artificial light, and almost all of the rhymes are with the letter I, so either A or I. And I only intended for the poem to be read vertically, but some of the lines sort of work horizontally as well. Not all of them do. So I don't know why I tied myself up in not so much, but I'm quite happy with how it turned out. So.
But sometimes you do pieces. I've got pieces of fiction stuff and prose and poems. I've got at least one poem which took me 5 years to write because I've been going tying myself
Um,
up and then knotting it. And then someone asked someone becoming forthcoming novel. The fourth novel's going to be. I've dug myself a massive hole of it, and you're trying to work yourself out how to pull yourself out sometimes. I think
yeah,
that's what this poem feels like to me. And it's because it's a fantastic piece, really is. Probably my
thanks very much.
favorite probably my favorite in the collection, if I'm really honest, but it's a great collection. But it's like I can see what you've done is you're going like lines running over all the time. And I'm sat there thinking, this really is a piece of art, this, and
Thank you.
you must have drove yourself mad with this, definitely. But
Yeah.
no.
I do love writing poetry because I feel like you're working both sides of your brain because it's quite technical, but it's also very creative. So it's like a sort of emotional puzzle almost.
Yeah, and I think it is. It's you're learning if you push yourself what you've done with this collection, you can end up doing it in all kinds of directions, and you're learning more about yourself all the time as a writer, I believe. Now, I
Mhm.
know you don't just write poetry, because I know you've been writing some short stories as well, haven't you? So, and I've got the feeling, was it you that told me? And we'll come on to what you're going to do next in a minute, because I'm sure I remember you mentioning something to me, but I'll come on to that in a minute. But how have you found writing different formats, so stories and poems? Is it you find like you challenge yourself in different ways all the time?
Yeah, and so this year I'm really going to try. I'm going to try and write as many stories as I do poems. I'm going to try and do like one each, and it's quite good because they're both freeing in different ways and they're both difficult in different ways. So you can be like, "Oh, thank God I get to write a poem now," and then the next time you're like, "Oh, thank God I get to write a story now." Um, so yeah, like I said, I always intended to write stories and prose, and the poetry thing sort of just took me by surprise. But I love it now, and I don't think I can stop. So yeah, I'm starting out with flash fiction, and then hopefully I can kind of build it up and write sort of longer pieces, and eventually, hopefully, some long form things. But yeah, it's nice I've been able to do both really.
Yeah, good luck with it straight away. With it. I can understand you with that. Like, we'll talk about it more off camera. So you've got a few things you want to talk to me about today. But yeah, I think as a writer, when you've mastered one thing as a creative thing, I think it's easier to then to move on to other things. And it's just a case, I think, building your confidence up slowly every everything you do. So no, good luck with it, definitely. So keep
Thank
us
you.
informed.
I
Now,
do wish I could go back when I first started writing and say, just try and write a poem and then try and write a short story and then try and build it up. I don't like such obvious advice and I just didn't think of it.
yeah, if I'm honest, I wrote nothing but poetry right up to lockdown, really, when I hit 50.
Right.
And then since lockdown, it's kind of all spiraled off in all kinds of weird directions, less of poetry, and it's natural progression, I think, with your creativity. So good luck with it. So, okay, now, obviously, first of all, we have to ask you, obviously, we are talking about the little pamphlet here, now, which I can show here, 'cause I've got it with me here. If people want to get hold of this pamphlet, and I'd recommend they do, how do you recommend they do it?
So you can catch me at an open mic night, but I've kind of scaled back performances this year because I did a lot last year and it really takes it out of me. So I just need to manage my mental health a bit. So I'm only going to do one a month. But yeah, you can catch me at an open mic night, or I'm happy to post it out to people. I'm just charging because it is it's printed on paper. There's no sort of front cover or anything. So I'm just charging £1.50 to cover the cost of printing, and then an optional £1 charity donation to the Internet Watch Foundation. And then if you want me to post it, I'm happy to split the postage with people. So you can, yeah, just ask me on Instagram. It's probably the best way.
Yeah, I think so. I paid £3 for it, and I'm pretty glad I did, to answer, so it was fantastic. So now, obviously, yeah, I said before, now we obviously need to make people aware, obviously, what your social media links are. Before I ask you what you got coming up next, because I'm pretty sure I remember what you told me last week on this. So, what's your best social media links for yourself and the Urban Scrawl? And you've got websites as
Yeah.
well, haven't you?
I do, yeah. Instagram, my personal one is Annie's.acre, so at Annie's.acre. But if you type Annie Acre in, it'll probably come up. And the Urban Scroll one is at Urban Scroll Mag. But again, if you just type in Urban Scroll, it should come up. And my website is anniesacre.co.uk, and the magazine is urbanscrollmag.co.uk.
Brilliant. Good luck with that straight away with it. So, they said for you to clarify, your next magazine's going to be out on magazine's going to be out in April, he said, wasn't it? So
That's right.
obviously then, when's the submissions going to be closing for the April magazine? Just so people know.
So I would say I like it to be the middle of the month, so the 15th of the month. So if we say the 15th of April for the April edition, and I like to put it together sort of in the last 2 weeks.
Brilliant. Keeps informed of that, so if I can help you out with that straight away, no problem with that. Now, obviously, to wrap up with on part one, obviously, 'cause I know you, I'm sure it was you, that you're going to do next stage of your creativity, you're going to do something completely different, aren't you?
My problem is, I think maybe you're the same. I just have that many ideas that it's sort of focusing and
Yeah.
uh, doing maybe sensible next steps, but then I just get this idea and I just want to run off in a different direction.
I get bored. That's my problem.
So I think I've got loads of ideas around sort of place writing in terms of poems and stories. Got lists and lists of things I can do there. I thought of an idea for another pamphlet, which I thought might be a nice bridge. Well, in fact, the last poem in this collection is called "The Bridge to Body City," and I was
Yeah,
thinking that it would be nice to do the next pamphlet called "Body City," and I want to explore the body as if it's a city. So I was thinking, write a poem for each sort of major organ and write a poem for each sense organ and explore it like it's a city. I thought that might be a nice transition into my sort of place writing. But then randomly, like a couple of weeks ago, someone asked me to help them out with a couple of verses on a songs, and I have no musical ability whatsoever. But I'm just really enjoying it, so maybe I'll do that for a bit. I don't know.
yeah. Well, fingers crossed. Well, I find it fun myself because I'm not massively musically trained. Like you told you already, I've got a band going with singer
Mm.
Polly, and Polly's just fantastic, and she's easy to work with, and all I'm just doing is the mixing side of it and building blocks of tunes. So you never say never. You never know what it's going to
I
lead
was
to
listening to
next.
that earlier and I really liked it. I love sort of expansive music and it has that feel to it.
That's what the plan is on the second album, and it's just typical. We wrapped that up about a year ago and bought it out last October, I think it was. And we've actually the third album's now all wrote and composed and stuff, and I've got to mix it. And Polly, oh, hi Polly, if he's listening to this, keeps giving me extra tracks, and we've got at the moment 26 tracks going on the third album.
Gosh.
It's going to take ages to master, but you know what I mean? Hey ho. So if we keep fingers crossed to you, Annie, with it definitely. So you'll learn stuff about it. You start going to composing songs as well. So
Yeah, we'll
uh,
see. We'll see.
yeah, well, best way. So right. Anyway, people, yeah, we're going to wrap up part one here because I've kept Annie on for ages. I'm going to shock her in a minute and tell her how long we've been chatting. So, so, but we'll take a quick break, and Annie's going to do a few pieces for the second half. So thank you, Annie. Okay, been a pleasure. Absolutely enjoyed this today.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Right, folks. See you all in two shakes of the dice.